Hi! Today we are going to do our very first foster to adoption story. In case you're new to our channel, I am Raya.
And I'm Shaun.
And we are the Connley clan. Right now we have 13 kids total, but we're going to tell you about our very first story. So I feel like I knew from a young teen actually, that I wanted to do foster care. Really had never thought about adoption, but foster care touched my life multiple times when I was younger, and so from about 16 I knew I wanted to do foster care. So I never really thought about finding a husband that wanted to do that. We actually didn't talk about it until after we had gotten married, but I'm sure there are probably lots of women out there that are interested in fostering kids, but you either don't know how to approach your husband or maybe he said no. So I thought first we'd start with asking Shaun how he felt when I approached him about it.
Yeah, at first it really was not something on my radar at all. I went through a divorce prior to us getting together and doing our thing, but it was a really nasty time. And it was a heartbreaking time with my kids because, as everybody out there knows, a divorce, it really puts a lot of strain and compromises your relationship with your children. And this one really did. I had a very bitter ex-wife. She was, it was always about holding the kids from me, and long story short, it was a heartbreaking experience for me. I ended up moving out of the city that we were raising the kids in originally because it got so bad and so ugly, and it was starting to affect the kids.
And you didn't just leave, you moved home.
I moved, yeah, and it was only a 3-hour trip, and I was making trips every weekend just about to get my kids and bring them back 3 hours and go through that whole thing every week or every other weekend.
So you had 2 kids.
Yep, Declan and Lily.
Yep, and then I had 1, which is Brianna. We kind of talked about having kids together, but that was really something you weren't sure you wanted just because of your heartache.
Yeah. We had Brianna that we were raising at that time. She was what, 5? 6?
Yep, she was 5, so she's my biological, but we had her living with us, and then Declan and Lily lived with their birth mom.
And then by the time we were at the point of starting to foster, she was, what, 13?
Yeah, she was 13, yeah.
So, yeah, it was not, like I say, it was not on my radar, and it worried me a little bit because of what I had gone through with Declan and Lily.
Yep.
So I was pretty close-minded at first, but the more we talked about it, I felt open to it.
Well, I think you definitely didn't want any more biological children,
right?
Because you were worried about what happened to you before,
right?
But then, even with that, we were not trying. We're not trying to have kids, but not trying, if that makes sense, and nothing ever happened, and so we assumed we couldn't, and so then we talked about foster care, and I felt like when I approached you about it, you were pretty open. You only thought about it for a short time and then said, yeah, I'd be interested in doing that. And so we ended up finding an agency, and we went through the classes. It took us probably about 6 months to go through the classes.
Yeah.
I think we started in October, and we got licensed in February of 2014. And then it took only about 2 weeks, and we got our very first placement. And that happens to be Jade and Lily. So Jade was 3 at the time, and Lily was only 3 months old at the time. And they did a little bit of transitioning, so they came and stayed with us for a week and then went back to their foster home that they were previously in for a couple days, and then came back to us and then stayed with us. So, and what did you think about our first?
That was, it's to me, it's always nice getting new kids. I mean, the first week, 2, 3 weeks, a month, it is, it's just a warm, fuzzy feeling when they come into your house and you can give them things that they haven't had, structure, you know, just the love and the hugs and everything. These kids are coming a lot of times from homes that they didn't get much of anything that we were just eager to offer them. So that was nice.
I think it's funny because for you feel that way, and for me, I feel different about brand new placements, and you still to this day feel that way.
Yeah.
And I feel the exact same. I get so stressed. I am so stressed out when we get a new placement. I'm worried about having to discipline them. I'm worried about what they're going to think about us. I have all these worries that surround it, and so we do feel a little bit differently about that.
Yeah. And there is some stress around. You know, you've got a big transition all at once.
Yeah.
It's like sometimes there's 2 kids, sometimes there's 4 kids coming in at one time. And we tended to be more open to groups. Yeah, sibling groups.
Yep. So they came, and now they're staying, and and this is not normal, but they normally come with almost nothing. But because they were coming from a previous foster home and they were very well loved, they had tons and tons of stuff, tons of clothes and toys, and she showed up with an entire Suburban full,
I forgot about
full of their stuff. And so she brought all that with them, and so that was nice of her. And then we had this transition, and I feel like what I learned is that with every new child or children that come in, there is this period of time where you are transitioning. So it would always take me at least 3 months to get into a new groove, and by 6 months, having him 6 months, it was just my new normal at that point then. And so it always took me about that amount of time, I felt like. But we did have some trouble with Jade. So Jade has behaviors, quite a few behaviors. She has since been diagnosed with ADHD and ODD that we know of right now. So back then, though, we went through a lot of therapy with her.
It was an experience with Jade. Our kids, Declan and Lily, were a pretty easy raise, I feel like.
I do too.
Brianna was not easy. I came into it when she was, I think, 5. Yeah, 5.
Yep.
And I mean, I remember we've got some horror stories as we were raising her.
Yep.
We were dating, and we went to Dallas to visit my sister in Texas, and I'll tell you, that trip opened my eyes to how bad things can get. I mean, she was kicking the back of my seat the entire, and we're talking 8 hours, 10-hour drive.
Yep.
It was screaming, it was kicking, it was, and there was just no consoling her. She just got in a defiant mood, and that was it.
Yeah, so Brianna also had ADHD and ODD, and extreme defiance. Like, that's what comes along with ODD. That's what ODD basically means.
Right.
And tons of defiance. So love to make you mad, push your buttons. And I honestly thought that nobody could throw anything at me that I had not been through already when we started fostering. I will say that Jade has given us a little bit of run for our money.
Yeah, I mean,
but she's doing really good right now.
She's doing great right now. She is an incredible help with the animals.
Yeah, she is. She's doing amazing.
Yeah,
but it took a lot of patience and experience to get to the point that we're at now. And I just want to make sure that we're always being very honest about what we've been through, because I'm sure there are other people out there going through the same thing. And if you're thinking about fostering, I feel like you should know. A lot of times it's trauma-based, and you can work through that fairly easy. I feel, not easy,
some kids are
but easier than when it's a mental health issue. Because when it's a mental health issue, it's not always about working through it. It happens to just be part of who they are.
Right.
And so there's a difference there. So Jade gave us a little bit of run for our money, had quite a few behaviors.
And we did. don't misunderstand. I did anyway, had reservations about going forward with a permanent, an adoption or anything like that. There were a lot of challenges with Jade. Lily was a little baby and she was perfect, basically. She was
very
perfect.
easy.
But I was at work downtown and got a phone call, and Raya informs me that the kid's birth mom, was pregnant again, and 3, 4, 5 months along, and that they would like to offer us the baby when it takes place because she was going to give it up.
So we had been we had the girls at this point for probably about a year. They had just offered us adoption for the girls, and I knew right away that I wanted to adopt them, even though it wasn't something we had talked about. I just knew. And it took you a little bit longer, I feel like, to get to that point. But I think it was about 2 weeks, and you're like, yes, I can't even imagine them not being in our lives.
Right.
And it was a thought process because of the behaviors, and we knew that it was going to be a lifelong thing. But I remember that phone call. I was driving at the time to work, and our agency worker called me and said, "Are you sitting down?" And I said, "Well, I'm driving to work." And she said, "Well, the birth mom is called, and she's pregnant again, and she thinks she's in labor."
I didn't remember she was that far along.
"Would you take the baby?"
Yeah.
And I'm like, I want to take it, but Shaun's going to kill me.
Yeah, and those things happen more often than you think in fostering and adopting kids.
There's always a story and a roller coaster ride, I feel like.
And that one took me a day or two to come around because I was nervous with the set of circumstances surrounding Jade, and I worried about another one with that same mom. And having more difficulties because I knew she was into the drugs and the alcohol probably during her pregnancy. But you start thinking about taking those 2 kids that we've been raising for 8 months or whatever it was,
almost
and getting rid of them, and it's just not an option. I mean, once they get in your house, it's almost hard to let them go back home when you're doing respite.
Well, they've become, you're right, because they become part of your family for those, however many days they've been with you. Even during respite, you feel that way. So it did take you a little bit of time with Gavin to come around to that. I was adamant I was taking him.
Yep. And then, she was not in labor.
She was not in labor. No, she was not. But it did not take long. It was about a month later. So we had a month to prepare, which, normally you get 9.
Yeah.
But in foster care, it's so different. And so we told him yes, we would take him. And this is probably one of my favorite stories of our whole entire foster care career. And at the time, we had no relationship with her at all. They had actually told us not to have a relationship with her. It was going to termination, and they just didn't think that she was in a good place to have a relationship with foster parents. And she was, I think, had been causing some trouble with the previous placement. And so they told us just, stay away. But we did make a relationship with the kid's great-grandma. So we did have a relationship with her at the time. So when we found out she was pregnant, we decided that we were going to build a relationship with her. And I did that over text, but we would go back and forth, and I started sending pictures of the kids. And then we had built such a good relationship that when she went into labor, she called me and said, "I'm in labor. I know I'm in labor. I went to the hospital. They told me that I'm not, but I know I am. Is there any way you can pick me up and take me to a different hospital?" And I said, "Yeah, absolutely." So I picked her up and took her in, and sure enough, they said she was in labor. And I got to be there through the whole thing. She let me stay in the room the whole time. It was 12 hours. and she said it was like the longest labor she's ever been in. She was dying to get out of the hospital, but I sat with her the whole time, and I got to watch Gavin be born. I was like standing right there. I got to cut the cord, and then I got to go be with him right after he was born because he had to go straight to the NICU. He did have drugs in his system, but that was an amazing experience, and I'm so glad that I built that relationship with her, because then I got to go through that whole experience with Gavin. We got to keep Gavin. She ended up asking us what we wanted to name him, so we got to name him.
Yeah.
She even put his last name as our last name on the birth certificate, so he has always been a Conley. And I just think it was so amazing. And then she ended up relinquishing her rights on Jade and Lily, saying that she knew that we would raise them to be good people, and she didn't want them stuck, in the pattern of what she was stuck in. I just think it was such an amazing experience.
Yeah, it was. And you've got to respect that mom. I mean, there is nothing easy about relinquishing and just admitting to yourself and everybody around you, your family, that you can't do it. Yeah. And I was very impressed with her, and I know she still has some problems, but she will always have a good place in our mind.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And if there is a time, we've talked about it before, if there is a time she gets cleaned up and she is responsible, we would have no problem working with her to see the kids occasionally.
Right. And we want to make sure that she'd have to be in a good place. But, that's something that we've talked about.
Right.
So she has had another one since then, and we have taken him, and she actually reached out to us and said, "Hey, I'm pregnant again. I know I can't care for him. Is there any way you'd be willing to take him?" And we said yes, and now we have Christian, and so that is right now we have a sibling group of 4 and a sibling group of 6, and that is our sibling group of 4 that we have. So keeping that relationship, I felt like was good, and she keeps her distance because it's hard for her.
Emotionally, it is.
Yeah, and I can't even imagine. But she still reaches out, and we still keep in contact with her birth family too. So I feel like overall it was just such a good experience.
It was a lot easier than the last 6 that we just adopted not long ago.
Oh my gosh, yeah. We'll do that story too, and that is a whole different story.
But and this is, I think, more common than it's not with fostering, and especially being around long enough during that fostering process to adopt and watch the story unfold. Because you start with 1 or 2, and I'm telling you, you end up with another one, and then maybe another one. We still don't know if we're done with that.
Right.
That sibling group. We may get a call tomorrow that she's expecting again.
Well, the moms are very young. Both of our groups, their moms are very young, and so they have a good 10 or 15 years still to have kids, and
which is scary.
It is kind of scary. So our journey started in February of 2014, getting just Jade and Lily. So 3 years old and 3 months old. And then about a year later, we got Gavin. And then in January of 2016, we got to adopt the 3 of them. And so that was the end of our actual first story. But Christian ended up being born in March of 2020. Right in the middle of the pandemic, and so we added him to our group too. So I feel like it's an ongoing story, but the first placement to adoption took us 2 years?
Yeah, something like that.
And they had actually been in foster care for a year prior to that. So Jade was removed, and then Lily came along when she was at the foster home before us.
Right.
So that was a 3-year process for them, but 2 years for us.
Yep, and 4 kids later now.
Yeah.
Good experience, though.
Yeah. So that's our first story. We're going to do another one of these where we talk about the next part of our journey in foster care, which after we adopted Jade, Lily, and Gavin, we did what? Teens. We foster teens, and I know a lot of people seem very interested in fostering teens. So we are going to do another video about our next journey, which is teens.
Yep.
But we'll see you guys in the next video.
See ya.
Bye.